Hello and welcome to Melee's Turnwheel, the series that takes a retroactive look at the Fire Emblem series chapter by chapter. I'm your host, I'm in Melee Kirby, and today we're taking it back to chapters 13, 14, and 14X of Fire Emblem, the Binding Blade. I am once again joined by Soup. Say hi, Soup.
Hey, good to be back.
Very excited to talk about these chapters today. One in particular I think we're both very excited to get to.
Yeah, the best chapter in the entire series.
It's so true. So yeah, I'm very excited to get there. But before we do, let's go ahead and talk about the question from last episode, which was, which do you prefer between A route and B route? I was expecting this to be pretty straightforward with a lot of the same answers, and I was right. So you want to talk a little bit about it, Soup?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I answered this one. I don't think I've literally ever gone B route. It's just like, I think about it, and I'm like, I could either get Echidna or I could not get Echidna. That's like the worst trade ever. And the trade-off is like for Bartray, who's like it is fine. I don't really care that much about him.
Yeah, Bartray...
It makes my heroes' roles way worse.
You see, I feel like I like Bartray a lot more than I would if I play Heroes, or if I played Heroes, because... And people say that a lot about a lot of different characters, like Oboro, Jacob is a really common one, Arthur, like all these guys that just like ruin your fucking roles.
I mean, would you like them that much more? Those characters specifically?
I mean, those three characters that I just listed off are like, was Oboro, Jacob, and Arthur? Yeah, those are like three of my favorite Fates characters. So
really?
Probably, yeah, I don't like a lot of Fates characters, but those are three of the ones I do, especially Arthur. I think Arthur's probably like one of my, probably like the top 5 favorites.
Yeah, and Melee, I don't mind that Oboro that much.
Yeah, Obero's like fine.
The other two, I'm not a fan of Jacob, and Arthur's just like he's not a character. He's just silly.
He's a walking shitpost. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's a shitpost.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so yeah, the trade-off between when you have characters exclusive to each route, especially a short route split like this one, then it becomes a matter of like, do I want that character or not? I think it's less noticeable for longer route splits, like the Sakai Ilia route split. I don't know about you, but I never really base it on whether I want Diane or Juno. I pick it off like which maps I want to play, because it's like a huge chunk of the game. But
well, I mean, like I've seen the B route maps. They're essentially like not that different conceptually. It's just the order you play them is like reversed.
Yeah, they're very similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, Echidna is like a really good unit. She's cool. She's a female hero. Everyone loves those.
Yeah, she's got like probably one of my favorite designs in the series, like top 10 probably.
Yeah, she's really fucking cool.
She looks really nice.
And then Bartray is just a funny guy with a mustache.
Yeah,
he just doesn't compare. But I do.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm not a big fan of it. Like if you're coming from 7, that might be like, oh, I wonder what this dude's up to. But I didn't really like him in 7 that much.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, 7 makes me less likely to want to get him.
Yeah,
because it's like he's not a very good character in 7, or a very interesting character,
or a very good unit,
So it's not like I have a particular attachment to Bartray from FE7. So I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's probably not fair because hand axes are good in 7.
Yes, but he still sucks. Like you know, his stats are terrible. He can contribute for like 3 maps and then you bench him. That's pretty much, unless you want to recruit Carla. But anyway, my personal take on it is I like both routes, and I do sometimes choose to go B route because I do think 10 and 11B are like both pretty fun maps. But generally speaking, I prefer A route. I think 11A is one of the best maps in the game, and obviously the Echidna versus Bartray decision is pretty much a no-brainer. So, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the majority of people agree. I remember seeing a lot of dissent on that one. So
yeah, you get different items from the villages you actually visit, right?
I think so. I don't remember. Here, let me check real quick.
That would be an unhinged way to pick it. Is just like, do I get a better item from Village A or B?
Okay, so you got Barrier, Sword Reaver. This is 10B. Barrier, Sword Reaver, Dragon Shield, Orion's Bolt, Sleep, Door Key, Elixir.
It's either Killer Bow or Restore.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yes, it's a Killer Bow or Restore. Okay, I thought you meant like in.
I meant in Chapter 9.
Yeah, no, I thought you meant like within the chapters themselves.
I'm pretty sure that in the chapters themselves, it's effectively the same thing.
It's very similar.
That's the important stuff.
You actually don't get a speed in 10B. You don't get the Speed Wing unless you bring Lot or Wade, whereas in 11A you always get it.
Yeah. So go B route to get an extra restore stave.
Exactly. No, but you get one in 11A anyway, and you don't get one in 10B.
Oh. Actually...
You get a barrier staff in 10B instead.
Okay, then you don't get the killer bow in.
You don't get the killer bow in B route.
In B route, so this A is objectively better.
I kind of agree with you. I think A route is pretty much the better option all around.
Okay, we've solved it.
We figured it out. Okay, I got a good one. All right, and this is a big one. I probably shouldn't be blowing this question so early, but I feel like it's applicable to the chapter that we're about to talk about. Who is your favorite terrible character to use in Fire Emblem? Like a character that you know is just completely fucking god-awful, but you still like using them anyway. So
your Scrimblow of choice.
Your Scrimblow of choice. But they can't just be like a regular nobody. They need to be like really, really bad. Like Wendy, or the reason I bring it up, of course, is because we're about to see Sophia, and that's who made me think of it. I know there's a lot of people who like using Sophia. So who is your god-awful unit of choice in the Fire Emblem series? There's a lot of options from this game alone, so you're not exactly strapped for choice here. Okay. Remember to tweet your answers at IMayMeleeKirby or email turnwheelpodcast@gmail.com, because I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Soup, before we get started?
I think I'm good.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with our first chapter of the episode, which is Chapter 13, Rescue Mission. So, after everything's been resolved on the Western Isles, Etruria has fully undergone its coup d'etat. The Chancellor Roritz is trying to overthrow the king, and basically the entire continent is just kind of falling into chaos because one of the major superpowers of the world has basically just exploded, and no one knows what the fuck to do. Cecilia is leading a group of loyalists who are trying to keep the old order intact, but they're losing badly and have been actually pushed back all the way to a place called the Misser Peninsula, which is on the very southwest of the continent. I don't know how they managed to fall back that far without losing first, but because this is a long way away from Etruria, but I guess they managed it. So Roy figures out. Sorry, go ahead.
They probably just rescued someone with high move.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Or used someone with high move to rescue.
Rescue dropping strats. But no, that wouldn't work because they would have had to cross the desert.
Oh, flyers. They got flyers.
They do got flyers, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Pretty much everyone we see at in Chapter 13 is dead, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Roy goes to the Misser Peninsula to try to rescue Cecilia. And when he gets there, Cecilia's actually holding out pretty well. She's lost a lot of her guys, but she's managing to fight off the Burn forces. And then Zephiel shows up and basically says, "Hold my beer. I'm going to take care of this." And that's where the chapter actually starts. We don't actually see the results of this until I think it's like a turn or two in. But so when Roy first arrives, as far as he's aware, Cecilia is doing fine, and he still has a chance to rescue her. And so
he's got this.
He's got this. He's gonna do it. He's gonna win. He's gonna save Cecilia. I mean, I guess he does technically, but she gets.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. Well, we'll get into that in a second. But that's how the chapter starts, and the way this chapter is laid out is pretty straightforward. You're on one side of the map. Cecilia and the castle that you need to capture are on the other side of the map, and in order to get there, you need to cross 2 big bridges. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much all it is. One of the bridges is a little bit more out of your way. But the other one, the one that is right near your starting position, is a little bit harder because there are ballista that are going to be able to pick off your weaker units or your flyers. So, it's kind of like a pick your poison. I usually tend to split my army up and go, one crosses the northern bridge, one crosses the southern bridge. The northern bridge also has another incentive. You can't really call it an incentive, actually, I wouldn't say, but they try, at least. You are technically able to get a recruitable character in this chapter. And it's Percival. Percival is one of the generals of Etruria, and the game doesn't really intend for you to get him yet. You're usually supposed to wait a couple of chapters, but it is possible to get him here, and the way you do that is by talking to him with either Lalum or Elfin, depending on the route you're on, whichever dancer you got. So if you're able to get your dancer all the way to Percival before he leaves, because he is on a time limit, eventually he will leave, then you'll be able to recruit him. And I think we should save talking about him until chapter 15, because I guess I'm going to be the one doing chapter 15, but that's where most people are going to get him, and I think that's where he's definitely like at his most noteworthy, because if you recruit him here, he doesn't get hard mode bonuses.
It's funny, like the risk reward is like horrible on actually getting him in this chapter.
Yeah, and it's not it's not easy either. Like, it's pretty tricky, I would say.
Yeah, you gotta get your dancer all the way over to the like other side of the map, like complete opposite side of the map, like within 8 turns. And he doesn't even get hard mode bonuses on hard. And if you do manage to recruit him, then you get him for chapter 14, which
you're just gonna bench him in chapter 14, and then 14X is like it's really not.
And then 14X, he gets trapped in like the water.
Exactly right. So. It's not really worth recruiting him here. It's actually a objectively bad decision, I would say. But you can do it technically.
If you want to like flex, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's a good way to like show that you're a Fire Emblem god if you can manage to get Lalum or Elfin all the way up there. I've never actually managed to do it before. I've gotten close, but I've either like completely whiffed because I wasn't trying, or the couple of times I have actually tried to go for it, I just like barely missed out on it. But I think it was one time where I was literally like within walking distance of him, like with Lalum, but he left like that enemy phase.
Yeah, I just don't really go to the north beyond just grabbing the village and coming back.
Yeah, I tend to prefer to split my army up. It's a little bit more exciting for me. But going north can be a little bit tricky because there are some tough enemies on this map. I would say that this is the map where the enemies actually start to get kind of hard. Well, other than chapter 7, I guess, but like this is where it like begins and does not stop. There's like paladins on this map with silver lances.
Yeah. I think that's where you start getting like a couple squads of like a promoted guy and some unpromoted guys that hang out with them.
Yeah, exactly. There's like multiple promoted enemies around now. I think there's a sniper or two. There's like silver weapons, there's killer weapons, there's flyers, there's a lot of tough enemies on this map. And that trend kind of like persists into 14 and 14X as well, to a certain extent. So going north can be kind of tricky because you have to deal with like multiple cavalier groups that are difficult to take down. But it's still fun. I still like doing it. I think this time I sent most of my guys north, and then like I sent like a smaller group of like my better combat units. Like Lou is probably my best combat unit. He kind of just like swept the bridge on his own, the southern bridge, and then Marcus also helped out. Echidna was there. I'm still using Echidna. I haven't benched her yet, so... Anyway, I like this map. It's pretty fun, but it's also pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. I mean, what we just went through is basically the gist of it. After the first turn, however, we start to see some story content because Zephiel walks up to Cecilia and just fucking ends her life, dude. It's really bad. He almost one-shots her, and then to add insult onto injury, he fucking crits.
Yeah, it's a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby scenario.
She gets absolutely obliterated, and somehow she lives. She loses consciousness and she's put in the dungeons, but she is alive, technically. Percival...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Props for that. Props for living long enough to get healing, I
Honestly,
guess.
Yeah. It's at this point that Percival realizes that Byrne was like kind of trying to dick them over the whole time and doesn't really want to deal with this anymore. So he orders a retreat, and you have a certain amount of time to... That's the reason why he leaves, because like he's upset with Byrne for doing something that they agreed they would not do. Guinevere is here. Oh yes, okay. There's actually like a lot of story in this map. Guinevere is in this castle with Cecilia, and basically when Cecilia goes down, Zephiel finds Guinevere and they have a conversation. And this is where we really get Zephiel's like motivation for the first time. I think Guinevere's talked about it a little bit, but she has been very vague, and I think Zephiel just kind of like lays it all out here, which is that like he hates humans and humanity in general so fucking much that he is literally trying to wipe humanity off the face of the earth using dragons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've all had days like that.
Every time I go onto Twitter, I turn a little bit into Zephiel, just a tiny bit.
Yep.
So, at this point, Guinevere is like, you're fucking insane, and, any chance that she had of this war ending peacefully is kind of just like, well, that's out the window. So, he ends up leaving. Actually, no. He's still there for a couple of turns, which is something I wanted to comment on. So, after another couple of turns, Guinevere says to Milady. Milady is this character we've seen throughout the story trying to find Guinevere. She's Guinevere's like personal knight, and eventually Guinevere says, listen, please help me get out of here. I really need to go back to Roy. And Milady tries to like fight her for a bit, but then says, no, you're right, I'll let you go, but I'm coming with you. So Milady and Guinevere escape the castle and go back to Roy, and at that point we get Milady on our team. So let's talk a little bit about Milady. What do you think about Milady?
She's pretty good. I think people know that she's pretty good.
Yeah, I think she's definitely like a really well-known character for just how fucking strong she is.
Yeah.
Interestingly, she gets hard mode bonuses. This is something that people always think is weird because technically she's never actually an enemy because she never shows up on the map to fight you at any point. But she follows that rule that I outlined near the beginning of why they, for whatever reason, this is the rule they follow to apply hard mode bonuses. If they join the map partway through as a red unit, then they get hard mode bonuses. I don't get it. I don't get why that's the reason, but that's what it is.
I think because she's like coded to be red, like as an enemy for that one cutscene,
exactly.
It applies the add X number of levels to her.
100%. That is exactly what it is. And yeah, so she does get hard mode bonuses, and on hard mode, she fucking slaps with that. I mean, she's really good on normal mode too. I don't think that she's the best unit in the game on normal mode, because I think other characters are comparatively better. I think Shanna is a lot better, for instance, and we've had her for like way longer. I think Alan and Lance might be better. But on hard mode, she is pretty much undisputed best character in the game.
I don't know about undisputed.
Well, okay, there's one.
Just because like Rutger and Percival exist, but she's like an undisputed top 5. Probably top 3.
I don't think that her versus Percival is even a question, personally. I think that the fact that Milady joins earlier, has flight, and has maybe not as good combat, but like, I think Rucker is a very good point. I do think that her versus Rucker is a very interesting discussion on who's better.
Oh yeah, I guess helping you for Arcadia is probably better than helping you for like any other map after that.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
But yeah, definitely top 2.
Yes. Now, I will say, on normal mode, she can be a little bit rocky at base level. She needs just a tiny little bit of investment to get good. And by investment, I don't mean like giving her levels or anything. If you just give her a speed wing and promote her immediately, then she's fine. But if you have been like me, I've made the mistake in many of my past runs of thinking Milady is kind of like mediocre, because maybe not mediocre, but like not as good as people say she is, because I've always tried to train her. She joins at level 10, and I've been like, okay, well, let me try to get her like 5 or 6 levels before I promote her, and that's just a mistake. That's not going to end well for you. She doesn't do too well against the enemies if that's how you try to use her, generally speaking.
Yeah, she's not cooking as just a plain old Wyvern Knight.
Exactly. So
she needs to be like a Wyvern Rider?
It's Wyvern Rider into Wyvern Knight.
Wyvern Lord.
Wyvern Lord, yes, you're right.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
But yeah, so do yourself a favor, give her a speed wing immediately, or even if you don't want to give her the speed wing, at the very least promote her immediately with that Elysian whip that you're definitely not using. Even if you didn't manage to get the Elysian whip from Tate's Pegasus Knights, you did also get a second one, and who else are you giving that to? Like Tate? You gonna use Tate over Milady? Probably not. And then by the time you get Zeiss, you can just buy more. So.
Yeah, you get Elysian Whips are like the one item that you have plenty of.
Yeah.
Or the one promo item you have plenty of.
Yeah, you get a total of 3, and there's only 4 unpromoted flyers in the entire game, which is really fucking weird. With that out of the way, I'm going to talk more about her character in a later SSS episode, but for gameplay, that's pretty much all I have to say about her. I think you made a good point, which is that Arcadia, which is next map, is really good to have more than one flyer on, preferably as many as you can manage. So I always like to bring Milady to Arcadia, even if I don't plan on using her long term. I usually just bring her anyway, because like there's nothing wrong with just having an extra decent combat unit in Arcadia who can fly. Anyway, after that cutscene, we get another one with Zephiel basically telling Narshin to go to Arcadia. He tells Narshin, take some dragons, I got some dragons for you, have some dragons, and go to this place in the desert that has a legendary weapon, and just ransack the place until you find it. And then he leaves. And the reason that I thought that this was interesting and worth bringing up as like being after the Guinevere cutscene is that he doesn't even fucking like talk to her again after, like, before he leaves. He talks to her once, they have like a brief little conversation, and then she just leaves entirely, and he doesn't even fucking notice. Which I think is... He's on the
Sigma grind set.
He's on that Sigma grind set. He's got the Sigma stare. And I just, I think it's one of those classic examples of like, if he was just a little bit more compassionate and in touch with his humanity, then he might have been, he would have wanted to talk to his sister one more time, and then maybe his entire plan wouldn't have fucking fell to pieces. Could you imagine if he finds out that she's gone and he just like is like, all right, well, time to go get her back myself, and Roy has to fight him in like chapter 13.
I don't think I want to think about that.
Things would have ended a lot differently, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I feel like I keep cutting you off because of the delay. Is there anything that I'm like leaving out that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I think kind of the one thing that I want to bring up about this map is, I think you brought it up earlier, specifically about the like 2 bridges, and I think it kind of like this plus Arcadia next map plus like some of the later maps like 21 kind of made me realize like what I like about what I like in a map, and I kind of like it when it has like multiple lanes for you to actually go down, so like you can kind of make the decision of whether to split your army. or go down a specific lane, or go down a different lane.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's something that I also really appreciate in a map, being able, not just able, but also like incentivized to split your army. I think is a pretty good indication of like a map being one that I will enjoy.
Yeah,
it adds.
It just like it feels like there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Like when you when you replay, it's not like you're playing you don't have to play the same map the same way every single time. Versus something like maybe like an Awakening or Gaiden Open Field, where it's like kind of just go wherever, do whatever. Or even like something like Chapter 8, where it's just like, okay, we're just going down a linear hallway the entire time. And there's some exceptions, like I talked about, like how much I like Endgame, which is pretty much just like a bunch of hallways. That's a specific case.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I think that's a really good point. Being able to kind of pick your own way and have each path feel distinct is important. I think the difference between having different lanes and then having like a big open field, like you said, is also like it gives you opportunities for like body blocking and choking points and maybe even like situations where you can move one like a flyer from one area to the other, things like that. I don't know. It's
basically the game is good when it's a MOBA and you are playing League of Legends.
Please never say those words ever again. You will never be allowed back on the podcast.
I got you.
No. Okay, but yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, and this is I haven't really said it yet, but and my pretty short explanation of this map might have suggested otherwise, but I do actually really like this map. I think it's one of the better ones in the game, personally.
Yeah, it's solid. I don't think it's my favorite map in the game, but it's pretty good. It's like got a good layout, a lot of good story content happens. Kind of keeps the map like feeling like you're constantly like stuff's constantly happening. Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of downtime on this map.
Yeah, I think this might be the most story content that we've gotten in a single map in the entire game so far, because we're not even done with it yet.
Yeah, and I kind of forgot that stuff keeps happening after
Zephiel leaves.
After Zephiel leaves, beyond, I guess, Percival leaving.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one other thing that we haven't talked about, which is that Sophia and Cecilia meet, basically, and Sophia starts nursing her back to health.
Yeah, I forgot that wasn't after the map.
Yeah, no, they meet here, and Cecilia, says like, "Who are you?" And she says, "I'm a shaman of Arcadia." And Cecilia is like, "I don't know what the fuck Arcadia is," and she's like, "Well, we'll talk later." But yeah, there's only a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. There's a few things that I wanted to talk about before we move on from this map. First of all, there's a village here that gives you a body ring, and the body ring is an interesting stat booster because it boosts con, which is it's kind of, I'm pretty sure FE5 had a build ring, but basically it lets you use heavier weapons. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because the villager here just has some funny dialogue where he says it'll make you big and strong, but it might make your women less attractive or something like that, which I just think is funny.
The absolute coward of a villager.
Absolute fucking coward. You are so right about that. Who doesn't want a GF that can pick them up, to be honest?
Yeah, and throw them across a room. It's like the top of the hierarchy of needs.
You know who really understood that better than just about anybody I've ever met in my entire life is the guy who designed the generic NPCs from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Have you played Scarlet and Violet?
Remind me which gen that was.
9. This is the most recent one.
That's Gen 9. I have not. I haven't played Pokemon in like 10 years, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. For some reason, like there's just so many huge, enormous women in Scarlet and Violet, and it's just great. It's just fantastic.
I mean, like I know some of the I don't know the generic NPCs. I know like the major ones.
No, it's like a specific body type of generic NPC is just like women, but they're like huge, like built as fuck.
Yeah, I mean I know Ichikawa, the mangaka of Hoseki no Kuni, designed some of those designs.
Aren't all of the characters
maybe
Hoseki no Kuni? Isn't that Land of the Lustrous?
Yeah, Land of the Lustrous.
Aren't all the characters in that like toothpicks?
Yeah, so probably not actually.
I mean, maybe he wants to. Maybe he wants to diversify.
Oh, but I don't know. They're all rocks.
That's true. So it's like
they're pretty solid.
Like Steven Universe. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I was gonna make a bet.
It is just like it is though. It's like how Gintama is Family Guy Japan, Land of the Lustrous is Steven Universe Japan.
So true.
Yeah.
Don't think that I am gonna let you get away with that pretty solid joke about rocks either. I wasn't gonna let that one slip by.
Yeah, they're solid. Except for the ones that aren't and like crack super easy because it's based on the actual hardness of the actual mineral.
Oh, that's interesting. I have to. I've wanted to read it, but I've also kind of wanted to wait until it's over. Which I mean, doesn't he take like million-year-long hiatuses? It's like Hunter x Hunter up in here.
It's more like Ichikawa is a girl,
okay.
So she, but it's like they took like a year-long hiatus is probably like the longest one, and then they take like a couple like 3 months hiatuses every now and then, and it's a monthly series in the first place, so it kind of adds up.
Yeah, no, that's.
And then when the chapters drop, they're pretty short nowadays, and not much actually is happening right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you could hop on the anime. The anime is pretty good,
okay.
Although it's like a 3D anime, but it kind of works for that series specifically because art style's funky.
Yeah, I might give it a whirl. Anyway,
yeah, it's a cool show.
It sounds good. Anyway, back to Fire Emblem.
Yeah, so rocks.
So rocks.
Uh-huh.
I have written in my notes Marcus frowny face. Because I had an attempt of this map where Marcus died because he got hit by like 3 45s in a row, and it doesn't matter. I ended up resetting that attempt anyway. I was gonna let Marcus stay dead, but then someone else died, and I was like, okay, time to reset. So that I did not continue that attempt. Marcus is still alive and well. The reason I'm still bringing it up is because it did give me a reason to talk about something that I've been meaning to talk about for literally every single episode since I started FE6, and that is the change in the random number generator system. This feels like a good place as any to talk about it, since it was a little bit extra. It adds a little bit of extra frustration to moments like these when you know how the RN works. So basically, in every Fire Emblem game from 1 up to Thracia, if you have a 30% chance to hit, you have a 30% chance to hit. The game rolls a number between like 1 and 100 or 0 to 99, something like that. And if it lands below your displayed hit, you will hit the attack. Now, the way things work now, or the way things work in FE6 onwards, is a little bit differently. It's a little bit different. Basically, the game rolls 2 random numbers and compares the average to your displayed hit. So the way the math works out is it's actually a little bit more. It's a little bit skewed. So basically, numbers displayed hits below 50 have a lower percent chance to hit than is what is actually displayed, and numbers above 50 have a higher chance to hit than what is displayed. So like a 90% hit is actually closer to like a 99% hit.
Yeah.
And like 40 is closer to, I want to say like 33 or something like that, 25, somewhere around there. There's a whole chart you can look up of like what the actual numbers are.
Essentially it kind of just skews the extremes to being even more extreme.
Exactly.
So like 80s and above are like way higher than 80, like 90s are almost guaranteed. Same with like 0 to 10, 10 to 20. I think around 45 that should still be about a coin flip.
Yeah, I think like a 45 is probably like 41 or something like that. It's definitely not as skewed as you get closer to 50, and then of course a 50 is still just a 50.
Yep.
Now, the reason they did this is, I mean, they never like gone on record about it or anything like that, but I think it's pretty easy to see where they're coming from here, because Fire Emblem is a huge game for displaying confirmation bias in action. Basically the idea that you're more likely to notice things that go against what your expectations are. So if you see like 10 90s in a row hit, you're like, okay, whatever, that should, like, 90 is pretty much guaranteed, so that's normal. But the second, no matter, even if there's been like 190 hits that you actually connect, the one that misses is going to stand out more to you, because that's not what is supposed to happen. It's a 90, so it's supposed to hit, right? And I think the Fire Emblem devs realize that people think this way, and so they make it so it's more likely for 90s to hit than it actually would be in reality. So instead of missing 1 out of every 10 90s, you're more likely to miss 1 out of every 100 90s, which, you know.
Yeah. That and percentages are just kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Exactly. Now, sometimes it makes it even more frustrating when you're in situations like I was in with Marcus, where I know that wasn't actually like, 45 or 0.45 times 3 is like not that unlikely, or no, to the third power. But knowing that that's actually closer to like, 35 or 38, that makes it just that little, that little bit more frustrating. And it's kind of a blessing and a curse once you hear about it. But
yeah, and if you get hit by like a 15%, then it feels like you just got struck by lightning.
Exactly, because you practically did. Especially if it's like multiple in a row, the odds are extremely low, because it's closer to like 3 or 4% chance to hit.
Yeah, if you get hit by 15% in a row, then it's like the gif of the dude getting struck by lightning like 3 times.
And then the last thing, finally almost done with this map. There's a lot more going on in this map than in most maps. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is that this armory at the end of this chapter sells killer weapons, which is noteworthy because killer weapons are really fucking overpowered in FE6. They are as light and accurate, or maybe not quite as light, but about as light and about as accurate as iron weapons, being as strong as steel weapons, and also they have 30% chance to crit, just innately, which is fucking insane.
Yep. And it stacks with Swordmaster and also Berserker's 30% chance, like innate 30% chance to crit.
Yeah, it's crazy. So definitely stock up on as many as you can afford to get here. Don't be shy about it, because it's like killer weapons, and then later on you want to buy as many stat boosters and especially boots as you can. But really past that, it's like you don't really need that to like save your money all that much.
Mm-hmm.
So, now unfortunately they don't sell killer axes here for some reason. It's just killing edges, killer lances, and killer bows. But that's not the end of the world, I guess. Okay, finally done with chapter 13. Unless you have anything else you want to
add. No. Like I said, I don't think I have too much to say about this map beyond it's pretty good.
Yep, that's valid. This is also where I grinded Shin to try to get him as close to Shanna as possible, so that I can have that split go either way when I get there eventually. But that took a while.
Yeah.
I think I posted on Twitter.
There is right. Yeah, there is an arena in this map. Yeah.
I didn't use the arena. I used I boss abused him, which was a lot slower. But it also didn't require me to use safe states, and I try to avoid doing that.
Isn't the boss of this map a flyer?
He's a flyer, yeah, and his name is Flyer, but my Shin was also like level 5 or whatever. He was base level still, so he wasn't doing that much damage. And he has a spear, which are only 15 uses in this game, so it was really easy to break his weapon, and then he was just chilling. The chapter ends. We see some cutscenes. We find out that Sophia meets Roy and says, "Here, Cecilia's doing all right. She's in good health," and they chat a little bit. Sophia introduces herself as a shaman of Arcadia and kind of explains what Arcadia is. I think the way that they present this is really funny. Roy's like, why would Byrne want to go after Arcadia? And Sophia's like, I don't know, man. I have no idea. Although now that I think about it, maybe it has something to do with the fact that dragons live there. And Roy's like, what? What the fuck?
She's a little bit silly.
She's just a little bit silly. So Roy is going to go to Arcadia to stop Byrne from doing whatever it is that they want to do. So that's the end of the chapter. Pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of story content in there, more than we've seen in a while, but not too complicated. Basically, just Guinevere's back, Milady is with her, and Byrne's going to Arcadia. That pretty much sums it up well. Okay, now moving on to chapter 14, which is aptly named Arcadia. Roy decides that he's going to go to Sophia's village to try to stop Byrne. However, in the process of getting there, they enter into a very vicious sandstorm. And we kind of just leave them there for a second as we enter an enemy POV. We see that, well, this is not an enemy POV. It's the POV of some of the people inside of Arcadia. Specifically, we don't know their names yet, but it's Igreen and Faye. They're here. They're talking about, what's going on. And the little girl here, Faye, basically wants to get captured by Byrne because she really wants to see the outside world. That's like her big thing, is that she really wants to see what's going on outside of Arcadia. But basically she's not allowed to leave. So she has to stay there, and she's very frustrated by that. And they kind of think Igreen kind of thinks for a second, how did they find this place? That's pretty weird. It's a bit strange that they know where we are. And then she kind of says, oh, well, it could be this, but it's probably not. And she doesn't really give us any insight onto what she's thinking about. Is this supposed to imply that it's Idun?
I don't know. I don't think I thought about it that much.
I mean, it could...
maybe... It could be that. It could be... her thinking about, I don't know, spies figuring it out because of her backstory and all,
True. I didn't think about that, but it's possible. So I misremembered the story because I was actually looking through some cutscenes from later in the game, for reasons that we'll get into later. It has to do with that special third segment I was talking to you about, Soup. But I was looking through some of the late game cutscenes, and I misremembered this. I always thought that Idun was in Arcadia at some point. And so that's how she found out. Idun just tipped off Zephiel. But no, she never lived there. She was... that wouldn't make sense because it would need to be after the Scouring. Yeah.
When Arcadia would need to be founded after the Scouring, and Idun was part of the Scouring and was sealed in the Scouring. So I think it's either she's talking about spies or talking about Sophia leaking it, because
or maybe Idun
she was captured.
Idun probably has some magic power to sense dragons or some shit. I don't know. It could be any number of things.
Byrne looked at the script.
What's that in the sand over there? Is that the script? Okay. Zeiss is here. He doesn't do anything, but we meet Zeiss here for the first time. I don't even think it's mentioned that he's Milady's brother, but he sure is here. And they talk about how one of the guys who's with him is where's Narshin? Wasn't he supposed to help us? And Zeiss is yeah, Narshin fucking dipped, dude. He's going to do something else. He just told us to take care of it. And the guy's are you fucking joking?
He doesn't. He doesn't want to deal with this shit.
He literally does not want to deal with this shit. The guy's does he really expect us to be able to do this alone? It's Narshin just is taking L after L after L in this game. It's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not... he's something.
I just think about how many times Roy would have lost if Narshin was even, like, slightly competent at his job.
Right.
Okay, and that's how the map starts. We're in a desert. We're in Fog of War. And Cecilia and Sophia have joined us, and oh my god, it's Arcadia.
Oh. Go raw fire.
Go raw fire. Okay, So I don't want to put you too much on the spot here. So I'll talk a little bit about I guess why I don't like this map. So I did mention to you, Soup, at some point that I ended up liking it more on this most recent playthrough than I have in the past. That's not saying a lot, because for a time, this was actually my least favorite map in the entire series. Now, granted, at that point, I only had played like 5 games or 4 games, so my sample size was a lot smaller. But I've definitely softened on it a lot, and to the point where I don't even think it's the worst chapter in this game anymore. But it is still very much down there for me, and I don't care for it all that much because because it combines 2 things that I really, really don't like, which is Fog of War and sand. I don't like sand. Rough, coarse, irritating, gets everywhere. You know the whole bit. It's just not. It's just like tailor-made to annoy me. And it's also hard. Like, that's the other thing. This is a hard map. There are enemies here that can kick your ass. And it's led to a lot of resets. I think when I was first playing the series, I think this is probably the map that I had to reset on more than any other, like, GBA map, maybe even some, like, Path of Radiance maps. Like, this is, for me, I think for, like, a blind player, this has got to be one of the hardest maps in the entire, like, back half of the series, or I guess, like from Thracia onwards.
Yep.
But yeah.
I get that. I would probably, like, when I say, like, this is the best map in the series, I'm being hyperbolic. I don't even think this is my favorite map in 6, but I do like this map a lot. And like I said, in my answer to a previous question, it's probably, like, one of the Fog of War maps that I think works. It's probably, like, my favorite Fog of War map that I can think of. Like, I think, like, on paper, like, it like, combining Fog of War, like, with the mechanic that is annoying, that's annoying and sucks, and desert maps, which is another mechanic that sucks pretty bad. I think the combination, like, oddly kind of works, because Fog of War typically demands you to, like, kind of move slow and be careful, like, on its own, like, just because, like, oh, you don't want to rush ahead and have to suddenly be in front of, like a bunch of strong enemies, so you kind of want to move slow, clump up, and be careful. And desert maps, which is, like, a mechanic that actually forces you to move slow just because of your low movement, and it kind of demands you to, like, actually plan your team around that. I think it kind of actually works when you put the two together, because with, like, the low movement of sand, you're typically not going to be rushing forward and, like, running into a bunch of enemies. Like, I think that's kind of the most annoying thing I can think of in, like, say, Chapter 9 of this game, where it's like, oh, I moved forward, and then suddenly, like, a nomad came out of the darkness and, like, sniped my dancer. Not that you have a dancer in Chapter 9, but, like, it sniped my flyer or whatever. I think, like, having sand kind of, like, weirdly prevents that, so you can kind of, like, actually see the people in your movement, because it's not just your movement that's restricted, it's the enemies. Like, there are probably, like, a few exceptions to this, like the enemy wyverns, which are a little bit of a dick move. But, like, overall, I think that it works. It's kind of a little bit of a guide map in that you kind of have to know, like, what enemies you're facing, and, like, this is kind of a problem with Fog War, that probably it would be nice if, like, they at least, like, in the prep screen showed you what enemies you'd be dealing with, because there's, like, a few dragons in Arcadia that you probably wouldn't know about beyond just, like, oh, in the preamble they say, oh, there are dragons here, but it doesn't really tell you that they're enemy dragons, so you might not know to bring, like, a Wormslayer or something, but, like, they'd have pretty low move. It's not super hard to go around them. But I mean, like, if you did want to take them out, then it'd be nice to know that beforehand, so you can at least strategize around that. It is definitely a hard map, and on, like, repeat playthroughs, that's something I appreciate about it. I like that it's kind of like this map in the middle of the game that you kind of have to strategize your run around. Like, you need to have some kind of answer for Arcadia, and that kind of determine, like, how you build your team for the mid or even the whole game. Like, oh, do I want to use, like, 2 flyers here? Should I bring a couple mages so that they have an easier time moving around in Arcadia? I like having those, like, types of milestone maps where it's kind of like, oh, I need to plan at least part of my run around this and, like, actually think about what I'm going to do here. I think that's kind of, like, a good exercise to have in your strategy game, is to kind of have, like, something that you need to strategize for beyond just strategizing the whole run around endgame. I think that's pretty boring and doesn't really give you, like, that. In the middle of the run, it's kind of like boring. It's kind of hard, like, to, like, oh, it's nice to kind of have this map in the middle. It's like, oh, it's this is kind of what I've been building up to, at least for, like, the mid game section, and now I can start working on my end game strategy afterwards. I like and this might be something we talk a little bit more in depth later, is I like the hidden items as a side objective, particularly because it kind of gives you incentive to move your thief around, bring a thief, move them around deliberately, to make sure you get all the items. And I prefer that to a side objective like, say, a village, because again, that runs into, oh, I'm rushing towards this village, but I just ran into a bunch of strong enemies that I didn't know about. With the hidden items, they're not really in danger of being, like, stolen, which means you can kind of take your time, but you still need to get it all done before the turn limit. And in general, like, it's nice, like, to have a hard map like this in the middle of the run. It's kind of nice for repeat playthroughs. I like how challenging it is. I think it's generally manageable if you kind of treat it like the lane strategy that I talked about, and kind of just have your army intentionally move, like, up or over, and have, like, a consistent plan. Like, I typically just go up and over, and it's not too bad. And then kind of just work my way back down once I get to the actual village. I get that it's, like, for new players, like, blind players, like, this map is, like, kind of a dick move. Because in this case, the Fog of War is just, like, punishing to people that, like, don't know the map, and the desert terrain, it, like, makes it difficult to correct for mistakes. I would like this map more in the context of repeat playthroughs than actual first time playthroughs, but having played FE6 a bunch, like, this is this is a map I really like. I think it comes together really well.
Well, you did it. I think. I mean, not really. I was going to say you managed to sell me on this map. Not quite, but I do think you make a very, very compelling argument for a lot of its qualities. I agree with a lot of what you said, and the perspective of the Fog of War and the Sand individually being two awful mechanics that, like, but that they complement each other surprisingly well. That's not something that I'd even considered before, and I think that's a very, very good point. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah. I think I touched on what I don't like, so I don't really have much to counter there. that I haven't already said. I think it's just a matter of like how like for me it's just inherently frustrating when I forget like where the dragon is and I move Shanna like in his range and she just gets fucking blasted. And my Shanna could live a hit from the dragon, but then like a wyvern can come and hit her with a javelin or something like that. So it's it's just Fog of War is just like, I think if it was just the desert part, I'd be like fine with it. But I think the Fog of War just adds a certain level of difficulty that in a way that I don't care for very much. But I do think that there's a lot going on in this map. I agree that the desert items are a great concept for a side objective that I'm glad to come back in like many subsequent games. I think it's every game from now until Radiant Dawn, I think has some form of this. Which is a shame that they kind of like dropped it and let it. No, even FE 11 skips it because I don't even think there is a desert map in 11. But 12 there are desert items, and in fact I think there were in 3 as well. So like half the games in the series have this concept, and I'm happy for that because I think it's a cool one.
Yeah.
I especially like, and this can segue nicely into talking about the characters that join us for this map. The objective specifically of getting Sophia to the end, because she is the only one who can successfully get the guiding ring, is interesting. And I like it because Sophia is just a fucking garbage character. So having to basically play the chapter like an escort mission adds an extra layer of interest. I mean, you don't really have to, because you could theoretically just clear out all the enemies and like rescue drop her. But there are also enemies that come from behind you. We get these 2 like brigand bosses that come up after a certain number of turns that move pretty slowly, and if you're playing at a good pace, you don't really have to worry about them. But like if you decided to just leave Sophia behind at the start, you're kind of fucked. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea. And there's a lot of cool aspects to it. But yeah, I respect where you're coming from on this one for sure. I don't fully agree, but I think you make some very, very compelling arguments here.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree that I feel like maybe the Fog of War isn't as necessary as the actual desert part. And the Fog of War kind of helps to like give it like 1, make it a little bit tougher, and 2, give it like a good sense of like place. Like one thing I probably didn't bring up when I in the context of this map, because it's more of a almost story type thing, is that when you actually get to the village, I think that's kind of like a pretty good like, oh, I made it, I'm safe, and it gives you kind of like a good sense of feeling like you're actually like in that like sandstorm. I think it's good at communicating through gameplay like the actual feeling of trying to like brave the sandstorm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I agree. I think that a lot of these ideas, this almost reminds me of a lot of my thoughts on Thracia, because I think that there's so many cool ideas here that I think work well, but it's just, for me, it's just not enough to justify the frustration. But I can absolutely see why it would be for you, and I think that this, you've definitely sold me on certain aspects of this map that I hadn't really considered before.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good map, and then that all goes out the window when a brigand boss shows up out of the darkness and one-shots my Laram.
Exactly, bro. That's, yeah, it's like, oh man, this chapter is like so interesting. I really like the feeling of being able to get through the sandstorm. Oh, that hero just fucking crit Shanna with his killing edge. I guess I'll reset.
If this wasn't on, this map would probably go down like a bunch of tiers if FE6 wasn't emulatable.
Oh, true. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like for like save states, you mean?
For save states specifically, I don't know if speed up's helping you too much here.
Yeah, I mean that's also, I think when I first played through this, I don't think I used save states. Like when I was still like new to emulation, I tried to like avoid using save states. I've definitely made it like way less so now. And having played FE6 so many times, I know where everything is. So I was able to get through without save states on this playthrough without too much. I think I had to reset like 4 or 5 times, probably, which isn't too bad by my standards.
Yeah, if this game gets a remake, like probably be like forever if it happens, but it would definitely benefit a lot from a Turnwheel mechanic.
Yeah, I think so. I think you could absolutely make that argument. Okay. So a couple things that you already touched on, but I wanted to elaborate on a little bit. This chapter does have a guidance attached to it, and the requirement is that you need to beat it in under. Let me check.
It's 25 turns.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely 25. I think this is like the map where it's probably most relevant because you need time to run around, and the one you need time to like actually make it all the way through. I think this is probably the one that I stress out about the most, but it's not actually. The map is smaller than you think it would be.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I gotta make it all the way through this desert within 25 turns. But it's not that hard, especially if you try to pick off the heroes in advance from underneath the ledge.
Yeah. I usually I'll have Shanna and Milady go around and
like kind of
take out those heroes as best as I can.
Yeah, try to like chip at them.
Exactly. Okay, and then the other requirement is that Sophia has to be alive, which I think is... see, that's the thing. The game doesn't tell you this, so I can't really say it's a good incentive, but the fact that you need to Sophia to get to the end to get a guiding ring, which is like one of the rarest promotion items in the game, I think is like most people, if they know about that, are going to keep her alive anyway, but that's the thing. The game doesn't tell you that you're supposed to do that, so... Same with the desert items, right? Like, a lot of this stuff we take for granted because we have the WAD page pulled up, but, like, you're not, like, the only indication that you get about the desert items, like, the location of them, I mean, Sophia tells you about them at the start, but she doesn't say anything about, like, where they are, and then if you get to the end, there's a house where they're like, look around the bones, and it's, like, one item near some bones, and it's the silver card.
I mean, the silver card's a pretty good item,
but you're missing the boots, you're missing a speed wing, you're missing the warp staff. I think this...
Yeah, the warp is just in a completely, like, unmarked corner. Yeah,
and then there's the also a talisman, a silver blade, and a silent staff, all of which are, like, you don't really need... I mean, I guess the talisman is an extra pair of boots, so that's pretty good, but...
Yeah. And it's easy to kind of, like, walk past them without realizing because it's a random chance to pick it up if you're not a thief.
So, if it was guaranteed for everybody, I think it'd be... I mean, I still like it. You know, like I said, I'm very positive about it, but I think I would like it more if it was guaranteed, or at least, like, a very high chance for everybody, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if the chance was higher. I like that... I don't mind that it's random, mostly because... you probably want to bring a thief anyway for visibility.
Right.
You just, like, plop Astor on this map, and he should be, like, decently equipped to handle it.
Yeah, especially there's a lot of Axe... Well, I guess there's not a lot of users, but, like, towards the end with the Brigands, I guess.
What I typically do is, like, 2 flyers, deploy a Pegasus, and then have the Pegasus fly the thief around while Milady is the one that deals with enemies.
You see, I did that, kind of, except instead of deploying... I've deployed Milady and Shanna for combat, and then I deployed Tate for probably the first and only time for this playthrough, at least, to fly around Astor.
Yeah, that works.
And then I guess we kind of put the cart before the horse here a little bit, but let's talk about the 2 units that we get on this chapter. Who do you want to start with?
We already talked a little bit about Sophia, so how about her?
Yeah, so Sophia is a dark mage or a shaman, and her stats are just abysmal. Like, she has worse base stats than Kath, who I already said had like some of the unbelievably lowest base stats in this entire fucking game. She can technically contribute more than a lot of your other characters because she can move her full movement in the desert. Magic units are unaffected by the desert terrain, in case you didn't know, but she is one of those. She can walk up to the enemy and have like a 45% chance to hit and do 3 damage and get 1 rounded. So really great contributions there, Sophia. We're really, really liking that they gave you to me on this map.
She is not very good.
That's an understatement. I think that you can make an argument that she is one of the worst characters. I think you can. She is unquestionably one of the worst characters in the entire series. I think that you could make an argument that she is the worst character in the entire series. I don't think I would agree with that. I think there's some that are worse, but she is like easy bottom 5 or 10 for sure.
Yeah, she definitely feels like she was designed to be a fetch quest for this map and this map only, and they didn't really consider like you using her after this map.
Yeah, her growth rates aren't even that good, right? So even you can't even.
Yeah, her growth rates aren't even that good. It's like it's kind of a joke.
I think she's legit a joke character. Yeah, like let's 60% HP, 55% magic is pretty good, but then 40 skill, 30 speed. And then 20 luck, 20 defense, 55 resistance. So she's just not very good. She gets one shot by like everything.
Yeah, you're supposed to defend her for this map and then get your guiding ring and cash out. I think if I were armchair game designer moment, but I think if I were designing this game, instead of probably how I would design her is essentially she's like this on this map, and then once you get her to probably about where the guiding ring is or after the map, like maybe she gets like a perf that gives her dragonstone effects. So that way, like essentially the idea is like you fetch quest her through this map and then she becomes useful.
Interesting.
So that way you keep the fetch quest incentive, like the fetch quest side quest or the fetch quest side objective of this map. And then she's usable after that. Either that or just like give her flat stat bonuses afterwards.
That would be really cool, honestly.
But as is, she's pretty bad.
No, she's really fucking awful right now. I would like to mention that more so for Rei and especially for Nime than for her. But I think giving a shaman the body ring is probably like the best use of it, because they only like the dark tomes are still very light, but they are heavier than anima tomes, and all of the users of them get weighed down just a little bit. So like if you give Rei a body ring, he can use Nosferatu without getting slowed down, basically, which makes him actually like a pretty decent tank, because he can now double with Nosferatu a lot of the time, at least on normal mode. And Nime especially benefits from this because she, like, with a body ring and maybe like an angelic robe, she actually turns into like a really good combat unit with dark tomes, which is pretty cool. But I get like the same concept applies to Sophia. You give her a body ring, she can like she doesn't get weighed down by Flux anymore. She still gets weighed down one by Nosferatu, but Flux at least she can use. So if I'm not saying you should, but like if you want to use Sophia, because she is like kind of important to the story, and you know you might want to use her. Body ring is probably like a good. This is a rare instance where it's like it's a very I guess not clear cut. What's the word I'm looking for? It's one of the easiest allocations of your stat boosters, I would say.
I think Sophia's probably gonna need a little bit more than just the body ring, but it's a start.
I think you might be right about that. You can give her the speed wing that you get in this chapter, Pog.
It's like speed wing, skill book, probably magic dust,
every angelic robe,
and then every angelic robe, and then she is half decent. But
she's
still
like
not
almost on par with Ray's base stats.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, yeah, Sophia sucks. Cecilia, though. Cecilia's interesting. Cecilia sucks for this map, for sure, because she's on a horse.
Yeah.
She's a Valkyrie, promoted troubadour like Clarine, and because she's on a horse, she gets really slowed down by the desert. But after the desert, she can actually start contributing a lot more. She is a pretty mobile staff bot. She has, honestly, pretty bad stats, but magic in this game is really good. For some reason, all the magic users just suck ass. But magic in general is like, I mean, that's probably why, right? Like, because they want to balance it a little bit. Magic is light, it's accurate. It can, it can let you attack without eating a counter. So magic itself is just like really good in this game. It's probably the best weapon type, I would say. And Cecilia can use it, and she has a pretty good rank in it. So there are reasons to use Cecilia, especially as like a filler unit for the time being. But in this map, obviously, she's kind of notorious for having like a really bad first impression.
Yeah, she's kind of notorious for being written off because of like this map. In general, their combat stats aren't really that good, but she does start with staff rank, which is a good thing. It's really, in this game specifically, it's pretty mind-numbing to actually raise your staff rank, because it's not like in like some of the later like GBA and other Fire Emblem games, like you can gain extra like staff experience points or like staff weapon experience by using certain types of staff. So like generally the strategy is like just use barrier charges to build up your staff rank. In this game, it's just like, no, one charge is one weapon experience, no matter what staff or what weapon.
Everything from heal to warp is one weapon EXP.
Yeah, so it's kind of mind-numbing to build it up. So starting with staff rank is pretty significant. And being on a horse and having staff rank is significant.
Right. I think that she's I think she's decent. She is the epitome of a decent filler unit. She's not great, but she's not bad either.
She does her job.
Now, I think people like to... This is more of a meme, I think, than anything else. But a lot of people also shit on her for being this bad as the Mage General of Etruria. Because next game, we meet the previous Mage General of Etruria, Pent. And he is like one of the... probably one of the single... He's probably the best character in the game, like in a vacuum, like discounting availability. But even then, he's still like pretty high up there. At least in terms of his raw combat stats, he's excellent. But obviously, we can't really hold that against Cecilia, because at the time that this game was made, Pent did not exist yet. I guess technically he did, because he gets mentioned in a few of the supports, because he's Clarine and Klein's dad. But you know what I mean.
They should have been cooking.
They should have been cooking. Why is I guess Klein and Clarine are both like perfectly fine units, but they're definitely not cooking as much as Pent was.
They did not get the superhuman genes. They get the Louise genes.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically... I have some other stuff written down here, but it's really not that important. I think we can go ahead and end. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say about this chapter specifically?
No, I kind of got my thoughts out in my like big rant. You don't want to mention the boss, Randy?
Die by the sword or by... Randy? I didn't even realize that was his fucking name. Hold on. I did not notice that. Oh my god. You're right.
Like, he's not really like a crazy boss. Like, arguably, the dragons and maybe the berserkers are more threatening than this guy. Yeah,
I would say definitely so. Especially so the way I guess this is a good opportunity to talk about the light brand. I did write it down, but I was like, do we want to talk about it? But we can mention it. So the light brand is a type of sword that does magic damage at range. So that sounds great, except it doesn't do like damage that hits your resistance. It does a flat 10 damage always. I think, at least. Maybe that can be mitigated. No, I think it's just 10 damage straight up. It's like the lightning sword from Guided and Shadows of Valentia. So it's pretty like he's fast, like he can double a lot of your guys, but if you're able to just eat the 10 damage, or if you're like pretty bulky and you can go up to fight him in close range and he doesn't do that much damage, he's pretty easy. He's not really that hard of a boss. It's one of the curses of swords in the GBA games. Maybe not so much in this game because it's less relevant, but in 7 and 8 especially, the fact that swords do not have a good, viable 1-2 range option is really annoying and makes sword units a lot worse in 7 and 8 than they would be otherwise.
Yep.
But, of course, his name is Randy, which I don't know if that is what you were talking about, Spike, but Randy is one of my favorite characters from Trails, which I need to shut up about. Although, to be fair, I didn't bring it up.
I mean, he was like him and Titania were the server heavy for like
a
while. So I know about Randy.
Randy's,
and I even that one even caught me off guard when I was playing it. I was like, oh shit!
the literal Trails jump scare.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so that's the end of chapter 14. In fact, that's basically like they just walk into the place and be like, "Hey, where's the legendary weapon?" And Sophia's like, "It's over here," and they're like, "Okay," and then that's the end of the chapter. The beginning of next chapter gives us some additional lore, which I guess we can just go ahead and get straight into that, which is chapter 14X, the Infernal Truth, which I think is a fucking cool ass name for this chapter.
The name is cooler than the map.
Yeah. This is not a very good map, but one thing at a time. So there's an oasis under the desert. There's a lot of water down here. It's all groundwater, apparently, and it's how the city of Arcadia can have so much, like, greenery. Like, you'll notice if you're playing the map, you'll see there's, like, palm trees and grass. And this is kind of how a lot of that is able to manifest. We get some lore about just as we did with Roland. We didn't really get anything about Durbin. Is that his name? We don't really hear much about him in 12X, I don't think.
No, it kind of remedies that because we learned about that in 7.
That's true, yeah. Unfortunately, like Athos, we get some lore about him, but unfortunately, we never hear anything about Athos ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that Athos found he found out that the dragons were living here. Dragons and humans were living together, and realized that they would be unsafe if they were out in the public. So he led them to Arcadia and sealed the weapon away here and made some sandstorms to try to keep people away. I don't remember how much of that is in this game and how much of that is in 7, but basically Athos helps them set up this village in the desert to keep them safe from people who would want to hurt the dragons.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that here. They at least mentioned the part about him founding Arcadia, I guess, and then sealing the weapon.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this map is funny because if you think about, like, there's I would say environmental hazards in at least most of the Gaiden chapters in this game. There's obviously the lava tiles in 8X, there's the poison in 12X, and here we get, like, those are, like, natural phenomenon, like, you can understand how they're happening. This is, like, the temple. Was this supposed to be like the tide, or like what's going on here? Was it designed this way?
I wouldn't put too much stock in the element thing because when we get later in the game, it's just like in 20A or 20X, it's just like, oh, there's just a bunch of walls.
Walls. That's the Earth element one, dude.
Yeah, 20XB, there's just a bunch of nomads.
That's the nomad element.
Yeah. The Avatar, master of earth, water, nomad, and air.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think they dropped this. I think it's definitely something that they were thinking about because it's a very clear pattern for the first 4. So I think that they definitely had the idea for this conceit, but then they dropped it for whatever reason. I mean, 21X does have...
Yeah, because they ran out of ideas for gimmicks, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the element of dragons in chests is the one that 21X is based around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the gimmick of this one is that as you go through the map, there are pathways all around the map that are going to be routinely blocked off by water, basically, submerged. Sometimes to the point where you cannot cross those sections anymore. You're going to want to bring flyers here because they're going to make things a lot easier. Actually, I should say that a lot of people choose to warp skip this map. I think it's honestly, we were talking about this the other day, Soup, how you don't really do that, but I think it's pretty common to just warp skip because it's a pretty easy one.
I was thinking about that. I feel like you could definitely afford the warp here. I was thinking you had less warp charges than you actually do.
Yeah, you get 5, but then you also have 3 hammer uses
yeah,
that you could just use.
So
on this.
you have 20 total. You only need 2 at least for a warp skip because boss killer and then Roy.
Yeah, exactly.
And this one is like the throne is close enough that you could probably get by with just 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean this map wasn't actually that bad to play straight though. I mean it was a little obnoxious. My units getting stuck because I had to just like sit in the water was annoying. But after a certain point, it was like, okay, my strongest guys are like leading the charge, and the ones that ended up getting stuck were characters like Roy and like Lilina, who just aren't able to keep up as well. So it didn't really matter all that much. I was able to like my combat guys were all fine, and then I think the biggest thing I don't like about this map is that there's like a huge section of open unused space. I don't know what that's about. There's like 2 enemies over there.
I talked about the lane concept, which I think in chapter 13, like obviously done pretty well in Arcadia. Even if it's not as obvious, you still have like you can go up and then to the right, or right and then up would be kind of like your 2 lanes there. In this one, I think the intent was you can either just go straight up or over and across. I don't know why you wouldn't just go straight up though, and typically by the time you actually get down there, because they have like the multiple bolting people, so you kind of have to take that first section pretty slow if you're playing it straight. By that point, that like your actual pathway to go over in that direction is like blocked off by water, so you're kind of screwed. So it's kind of, you just never go that way.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was, I mean, you might be right. I think that is a
because if you look at the map layout in something like WoD, like that looks more like a reasonable map, but when you're playing it, like the tiles just get disintegrated before you can actually go over there.
Yeah. No, okay, I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, that's weird. That's very strange. I mean maybe they I guess they, because the ones that lead straight up are like they go pretty quickly, so I guess the idea is maybe you're supposed to try to like get there fast, but then if you fuck up, then you can go around. Maybe.
I've never understood the pattern of when they actually
I
turn off either. And on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just fly skip.
Yeah, look at yeah, exactly, right? Like you bring Shanna and you bring Milady and they can carry people around. It makes things a lot easier. Maybe even Tate if you feel like using her.
Just drop a Rutger in the middle and watch him like nuke him.
Exactly. Or Lou in my case. My Shin, despite the fact that I was only using him just to try to get as much experience as possible so that I can easily switch between Ilya and Sake when the time comes, my Shin is like fucking really, really good. He's getting like such good level ups.
Well, he's just really good, period.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really usually use him. I don't know why. I don't really like using the nomads as much, or the mounted archers. I don't, for whatever reason, I've just never found them super fun. But this time I'm giving it a shot.
I feel that I didn't used to use them a lot, but I feel like in recent years I've become a bit of a Bone Knight enjoyer.
That's good. Okay. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that you mentioned the bolting tomes. The bolting tomes in this chapter are fucking obnoxious. They do so much damage, and the sages that have them are so strong. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just,
you don't really. They kind of suck here. You don't really have a good way of dealing with them beyond just warping or like rescue dropping someone close enough to deal with them on the next turn. But like, I feel like if you get a silence, I'm pretty sure you get a silence staff in Arcadia, and I think that's how you're supposed to do it. But
you know what? I didn't even think about that. You might be right. That's actually, I kind of like that now. Actually, if that's what the intention was, but I'm not sure.
I mean, that's what the intention is, but the problem is that I'm not sure if this is like a 6 exclusive thing. I haven't really thought about staffs in the other GBA games that much, but the hit rate is based on res, and the sages have a lot of res, so like good luck actually hitting them with the silent staff.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Okay, so that's basically it for this chapter. It's not super hard. I mean, it's actually quite easy, and it's a little bit annoying, but it's not that bad. I definitely have had worse. I think it's probably not saying much, but I think this is probably the best guidance so far, personally, just because there are multiple ways to deal with it. I don't know. They just all suck is the problem.
I don't like this one that much. It's not like the worst Gaiden map in the game, definitely. There are way worse ones coming up, but I'd probably take 8x over this, or it just
maybe
12x, just because they're a little bit less painful.
I think 12x is probably. I really don't like 12x.
I just don't like getting my dude stuck in the water.
That's fair.
It's annoying when I'm trying to, and the tiles just feel too random to me. It's just how am I I don't know how I'm supposed to plan around this.
Yeah, no, I got you. That's valid. It's definitely not good. I just hate 8x and 12x slightly more, I would say, personally.
Sure. And I'm also more offended by them bringing this gimmick back in 7 than 8 or 12.
Yeah, because at least 8 and 12, you are actually in those places in FE7. Yeah. So of course they're gonna bring the gimmicks back. You're in a completely different fucking place in when they use this gimmick in 7. I don't get what that's about.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to there are cutscenes in 7 that take place here. If they really wanted to have this gimmick come back, they could have just done it there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is a map where you're in Nevada.
Yeah, and
so
then
you're close enough.
Yeah, and afterwards, they when they talk to Athos, spoilers, I guess, when they talk to Athos in 7, they are in this underground oasis.
Right.
So, or at least a place that's very similar. Anyway, doesn't matter. You beat the chapter. The boss here is an old man, and because he's a sprite, or because he's a sage, his sprite has boy shorts, which people think is very funny. I also think it's very funny. But once you beat the chapter or beat the bosses, you can just see that's the end of the chapter. You rescue the people from Arcadia. There's some dragons. I'm pretty sure it's all dragons at this point, which makes sense because all of the pure humans would have died a long time ago. So it's mostly dragons at this point. And then they talk about what's going on. What's this? Sophia. Is it Sophia that says that she senses some kind of twisted force out in the world?
Yeah, I'm not. She does that at some point.
Yeah, it's either Sophia or Green mentions it. I don't know. Someone says there's something bad going on out there, and we wanna help take care of it. So
I think Sophia would be the one that senses it. I wouldn't be surprised if Green says something like, "Oh, Sophia says she senses this."
Yeah, I think that's actually what it is.
Uh-huh.
Right. So Green offers to come with you. Oh, there's a little tidbit here about how there are not supposed to be dragons outside of Arcadia. All the dragons outside of Arcadia supposedly should have died a long time ago. So they're not sure where these guys are coming from or what the deal with that is. But that's just a little nugget for foreshadowing for where we find out that these dragons are not natural dragons, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So Green joins your group. And we'll talk about her, or I'll talk about her at the beginning of next map. Faye also asks to come, but she gets told no, and so she's like, "Well, fuck you guys, I'm coming anyway," and sneaks out after them. So we're gonna have to deal with that in the next map. And yeah, that's the end of the story so far. I have written here in my notes benching Shanna, and the reason I have that written down is because I realized that if I want any chance of having Shin catch up to her in experience, I just need to not use her for the next 3 maps. And even then, that might not work, but I'm going to try anyway.
It might be a problem because I don't think there are any arenas after this point before 17.
Yeah, I mean, I can boss abuse. I can give him like a bunch of kills. I'm thinking about just like soloing the next few maps with Shin, or like getting rid of most of the promoted enemies with him at least.
Yeah, you could probably find if worse comes to worse, you probably find someone whose save starts in chapter 17.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm sure I could figure something out, but
yep,
doesn't really matter all that much. Okay. Yep. Interesting set of chapters. We got one that we both agree is pretty bad. We got one that we both agree is pretty good. And then we have one where you mostly like it, I mostly dislike it, but we can both kind of like see where the other person is coming from, which I think is interesting ground for discussion for sure.
Yep. Yeah, 14 is quite infamous for being pretty split there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so normally after the chapter discussion, I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to add about these chapters in general?
I feel like I probably should have mentioned this at the start of 14X, but when does Athos, I guess spoiler for FE7, when does Athos manage to steal Forblaze? I watched that dude die with it. Like, I was right there.
Hector and Ella would obviously go back and then take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Hawkeye brings it back, bro. Come on.
They should have said Hawkeye brings it back then.
They should have, honestly, you're right.
Well, where they should have been planning this out since FE1, bro. No, there's no excuses.
There are a lot of plot holes in FE7, and that is definitely one of them. But I'm just giving you a hard time. It is a very valid question. Okay. Now, normally, after we talk about our chapters, we did this for the last episode that Soup was here. We did it for the chapter, or for the episodes that Spike was around. We usually just say goodbye, and you take off, and I'll handle the rest of the episode on my own. Now, this time, I wanted to do things a little bit differently. And I came up with a little game that I thought would be fun to play since I have a guest here. And I was going to, go through the rules with you, and you were going to give it a crack. So does that sound good? You ready to start?
Yep. I was born ready.
Okay. All right. So the name of this game is Oh My Lord. And essentially what's going to happen is I'm going to... I've picked out 6 lords from across the Fire Emblem series. And I'm going to read you a quote. And you need to tell me which lord the quote is from.
Interesting.
Which,
that sounds like it could be way harder than you would think it is. Because there are a lot of them kind of overlap, and they're just like idealistic and like nice. I don't know.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, that was kind of what I was going for with this. I love a lot of Fire Emblem lords, don't get me wrong. I think the writing in the series is definitely, like, generally decent, or ranging from decent to good. But a lot of the lords are very similar in their personalities, so I think this is going to be a little bit tricky, but I could be wrong.
I think they do a good job of distinguishing them, but, I mean, there's a lot of overlap, and if you just had one specific quote, that might be a problem.
Exactly, yeah. So I have here 6 quotes from 6 different lords. If you guess the lord, you get some points. We're not really going to keep track of the points, but just for brownie points, I guess. And then you'll get bonus points if you can tell me the context, like what the quote is actually being said in the context of. And if you need a hint, I can give you a hint. So I'll start off. I'm going to try to go roughly from what I consider to be the easiest to what I consider to be the hardest. But I'll say, I'll give you a hint just to start off with, which is that all of these, except for one, come from main story dialogue. And then one of them is a support conversation that it comes from.
Okay, yeah.
Right, so let me start with what I consider to be the easiest one. So, any time that there's like an identifiable, like the name of a person or a country or whatever, I just replaced it with blank. So that way, obviously, you wouldn't give away the answer. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. No, that would not do. Today is a momentous day for my kingdom and my people. I must celebrate with them now, not later. Anything else would be a disservice to those who died to save blank.
I'm pretty sure that's Marth. That's the cutscene where he retakes Altea. I'm pretty sure, like, it's the same cutscene as the I'm a prince before a brother or a son or whatever. Something like that.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
You got it. That is Marth. Good old Marth. I picked 4 of these 6 at random, and this was actually one of them, so I'm kind of glad that I got Marth. But yes.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's like at least like one of the more iconic Marth scenes, and he's like up there, like top 3 for me.
Yeah. He's it's a really good scene. I agree with it a lot.
Yeah.
There are a few different scenes where like the main lord comes back to their home territory and says something similar to this, but I think Marth's is pretty distinct for sure.
Yep.
Okay. So next up, I'll go with this one. Okay. I don't expect you to understand. You've forgotten what it means to be human. Blank. My connection to you. It's over. I'm finishing everything up right here.
That one's harder. Is that Eliwood to Nurgle?
I'll give you half a point because that is not Eliwood to Nurgle. That is Hector to Nurgle.
Okay. It seemed like a 7 thing.
Yeah, so you got the context right, but the Lord wrong. So close enough. All
nice.
Right. Next up, number 3. No, I'm not making fun of you. You see, I have to always show people that I'm happy and confident because I'm the leader, but I often get depressed or become worried. Oh, I wanted to ask you, is there some kind of tip you can give me to stay happy like that?
Oh, that's the Roy Shanna support.
Yep, you got it. Yeah, so that's actually one of my favorite supports in the game so far that I've read.
It's solid.
It's quite good.
I'm pretty sure that support gets referenced in Engage, which is cool.
Oh, does it? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it like one of his My Castle or like one of his lines when he's just hanging around the Somniel is like someone like told me, and then something like Shanna said in that support.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. Absolutely. We mustn't neglect our knightly duties to the people, especially not at a time like this. Good point, blank.
Is it Sigurd?
That is Sigurd. What's the context?
I don't know. Is he talking to Eldigan?
No. Good guess. But that is from the very beginning of the game when Alec tells him that they should go save the villages.
Okay.
All right. Number 5. My friends told me it doesn't matter where you're from. What's important is how you live. How you live and what you do shapes your future. So who do you want to become? This might be. I won't say anything. You let me know later if this is unfair.
I don't know. It sounds like Leaf. I couldn't tell you the context.
It is not Leaf.
Oh.
I didn't even think about this from this perspective, but I actually don't know if you've even seen this dialogue because it is pretty late game Engage story dialogue.
Oh no! I finished Engage.
Okay, yeah. So the context is a spoiler, but I'll still say it. So if you care about Engage spoilers, skip ahead like 15 seconds. But this is right before he gets brought back as a whatever risen. No, it's not risen. Whatever the fuck it's called. Corrupted.
I want to erase that scene from my memory, man. Don't do this to me.
Oh, man.
That's the funniest fucking scene I've ever seen in my life. Oh my goodness.
So good.
I'm the Fire Emblem.
No, that one's later. So
yeah, that's after Alir gets brought back the second time.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
Okay. All right, so you're doing pretty good. You've gotten most of these at least partially right. So I'm gonna give you the last one, and this one is like, I think it's like unfairly hard, but we'll see. Maybe you'll get it. Maybe this is too much of a softball, but number 6. I'm sorry, blank. I'm sorry, everyone. Please forgive me. I can't tell you how much it means to me that we've come so far together.
I'm pretty sure this is Leaf.
No. That is actually... Do you want to try another guess, or do you good?
My other guess was like Crom.
No, it's Celica at the end of the game, where she is about to give herself up to Jeddah. The best scene in Echoes.
Oh,
definitely.
Oh really yeah, that's the other one that I've erased from my memory. So I think these aren't fair.
Yeah, just keep picking bad scenes so that you won't.
Yeah,
you should erase them.
You should have only picked the Kino scenes and not the cringe scenes.
Exactly. Okay, so what'd you think of that? You got 2 completely correct.
Yeah.
You got 1 just the Lord, and then you got 1 just the context, and then 2 wrong. So yeah, I'd say you got like a 50%. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was fun. I like that.
Good. All right, I might bring it back at some point.
What do I win?
You win that I will pick better scenes for the dialogue for next time.
I see this as an absolute win.
100%.
Saved from mid.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna try to pick different lords next time too. Although I think I wanted to pick specifically Alir, because it's the new one, and then I wanted to pick specifically Roy because it's on topic. But the remaining 4 were random, so I might do something similar next time. I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So glad you had a good time with that. I'll probably bring it back at some point in the future. But in the meantime, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I hope you will join me again for some point before this game is wrapped up.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Pleasure to be back.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, so glad to have Soup on, as always, and hopefully he'll be back again. Now, let's go ahead and just talk quickly about our map gauntlet, because this episode actually isn't that long yet. It's only, it's not even 2 hours, but the episodes with another person take like way longer to edit, generally. So I'm going to try to keep this one as brief as possible. So, map gauntlet this time. I think chapter 13 is my personal favorite, although I think Soup did make a good case for Arcadia. I don't think I can justify raising it from my least favorite in the entire series to... I've raised it from, like, bottom 1 to, like, probably bottom 5 for me in this game, which is still not great. So I don't think you can convince me that it's better than chapter 13, which is still, honestly, quite a fun chapter, in my opinion. I think it's quite good. I think the side objective of getting Percival, as kind of bullshit as it is, because it's not like it's actually a bad idea to go for it, especially if you're playing hard mode, then it's still fun. I like the villages. I like being able to buy killer weapons. It's just a pretty good map overall. I still am going to give it to Chapter 11A overall, however. I think Chapter 11A is still going to remain the best chapter in the game, and I'm trying to think ahead. Like, there's not that many chapters left that even like have a chance of beating it. But we'll see. I could be wrong. There are a couple that I like that I still... There are a couple left that I still really like. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. Any news? Let's take a look. Just Wave 2 DLC. Yeah, no, it's... There's some merch for Fire Emblem Engage releasing in April. I will have to check that out. There's some... I don't remember what the website for this is. You could probably like find it if you just search around for it a little bit. But there's a place where you can order the soundtrack, and the soundtrack actually has a customizable like case that you can put it in, and you can pick one of like I think 10 or so different characters. It's both genders of Alir, Vander Fram and clan, and then all of the royal siblings, so like Alfred and Celine, Alchrist and Diamant, etc., etc. So pretty good selection. I love Vander. Vander is definitely my favorite character in the game. So if I end up getting that, it'll definitely be with Vander. There's also like a lot of Vander merch. It seems like there's a lot of merch for almost every character actually, except for some of the more Scrimblow ones. Actually, no, even some of the Scrimblow ones. I don't know. There's some good stuff out there. Engaged fans are eating. The merch is coming on strong. I don't think we've gotten merch this quickly. Even for Three Houses, I don't think it came out this quick, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, that's about all that I have to say. I'm continuing Cold Steel. I started, I mentioned a few episodes ago, probably like in the middle of Thracia, that I had just started Twin Peaks, and I'm continuing that. I put that down for a while, and then I recently watched the movie, and then I'm now on Twin Peaks Return, which is like the new season. At the very end of season 2, all those years ago, there's a character that says, "I'll see you in 25 years," and then 25 fucking years later, the series started again, and it's just so good. It's so cool. There's so much cool shit going on in there, and I'm excited to continue that. I can't remember if there's anything else to talk about. I don't think so. If there is, it's not. I just started I've been in a drafting mood lately. I've been wanting to draft a whole bunch. And one of the things that I drafted is a few of my friends and I are doing a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald, but we are only able to use Pokemon that we drafted. So we went through and we drafted, like, each of us got, like, I want to say 15 to 6. No, it was closer to like 17 or 18 Pokemon per person. And yeah, so I'm not going to go through my whole team because there was a lot, but so far so good. I am currently at, I just beat Norman, and I have only had 4 deaths. 2 of them were against Norman, and 2 of them were against, of all trainers, the optional Rustboro City fight against your rival. I don't know what the fuck I was smoking for that one, but the only major boss that I've lost any Pokemon to is what's his face? Norman. So that's been going pretty well for me so far, and I'm hoping it continues. I think I'm going to get absolutely bodied by Tate and Liza because I lost my only counter to them, which was Mighty Anna. So I'm not doing too hot, but we'll see. I'm going to try to see it through, and then if I lose a Tate at Liza, I lose a Tate at Liza. That's a pretty good distance to make it for a first attempt at a Nuzlocke with such a limited selection of Pokemon. But anyway, doesn't matter. That's about all I have going on. So yeah, next time we're going to be talking about chapters 15, 16, and 16X. So until then, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.